Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
To me, this is the funniest episode ever of The Fred Allen Show. Some may disagree. There were a lot of funny shows and some shows that came close, but this, the funniest show to me of The Fred Allen Show, and it coincidentally stars Jack Benny. This episode originally broadcast May 26, 1946, 76 years ago today, King for a Day. And you're going to find this interesting, I hope. Thank you for tuning in on this Friday. This is the 26th day of May. This also happens to be the 146th day of the year. 219 days left till we get to 2024. The Indian Removal Act, passed by Congress on this date in 1830, signed into law by President Andrew Jackson 2 days later. The Removal Act paved the way for the reluctant and often forcible emigration of tens of thousands of American Indians to the West. Happy birthday, Montana. You were organized as a territory on this date in 1864. 1868, the impeachment of President Andrew Johnson ended with Johnson being found not guilty by one vote. 1938, the House Un-American Activities Committee began its first session. 1948, Congress passed the law which permanently established the Civil Air Patrol as an auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. That was back in 1948. Now, in 1969, Apollo 10 returned to Earth after a successful 8-day test of all the components needed for the forthcoming first manned moon landing.
How's the view, Tim? We have our student geologists here overlooking the surface, and they'll report a minute. Roger, standing by, over.
Okay, we're just passing from the highlands over into the Murray area, and you can pass on to Jack. We caught a couple of real pretty little volcanoes, there's no doubt about them, and we got a couple of good high-resolution photos, and it still looks kind of brownish-gray to us here.
Roger, we copy. Yeah, there was one volcano, or whatever it was, that it was all white on the outside, but definitely black around the top of it. Charlie, it might sound corny, but the view is really out of this world. Roger. We had a couple of comments the back row that I won't repeat.
A mere few weeks later, man would walk on the moon. 1978, Atlantic City, New Jersey Resorts International, for the first legal casino in the eastern U.S., opened. 1998, the Supreme Court ruled Ellis Island the historic gateway for millions of immigrants, mainly in the state of New Jersey, not New York. 2002, the Mars Odyssey found signs of huge water ice deposits on the planet Mars. And in 2004, Terry Nichols found guilty of 161 state murder charges for helping carry out the Oklahoma City bombing. Passing away on this date in history, First Lady Ida McKinley, also composer Victor Herbert, singer Jimmy Rogers, and those kisses sweeter than wine. Edsel Ford, automotive executive. The OJ's William Powell, actor Eddie Albert Greenacres. And a delightful man. We aired one of his People Are Funny shows a few weeks ago, Art Linkletter, and actor Ray Liotta, who passed away earlier this year. Birthdays on this date in history, singer Mamie Smith. How about Al Jolson?
After you saw the picture, didn't you kind of wish that you were as young as Larry Parks?
Bing, look. If I was young as Larry Parks, there wouldn't have been anything to make a picture about.
I see what you mean.
Funny man and a great singer, Al Jolson, born on this date in history. Also born on this date in history, John Wayne.
It's the Ringo Kid.
That's right, Buck. Hiya, Curly.
Ringo.
Didn't expect to find the sheriff riding shotgun.
I was heading for Lordsburg, same as you, Ringo.
Well, my horse went lame, so you got another passenger.
I'll take that rifle first, Ringo.
That's so, Sheriff.
You're under arrest for the murder of Jed Michael.
Sorry, Curly, but this Winchester here says different.
Sorry, Ringo, but if you'll look back up the road a piece, you'll see our escort of United States Cavalry coming up.
Oh.
I'll take that rifle now, Ringo.
Sure, Sheriff. But you better hold on to it. You may need it before we get to Lordsburg.
Thanks.
John Wayne, in one of his very few radio appearances, from the premiere appearance of Screen Directors Playhouse back in 1949 with the motion picture Stagecoach. John Wayne, born on this date in 1907. Also actor Ben Alexander from not only Dragnet, but also, and it may interest you to know that he played a big role as Ben in The Great Gildersleeve. He married Gildersleeve's niece, Marjorie. Also, Jay Silverheels, Tonto in the television Lone Ranger. Actor Peter Cushing, singer Peggy Lee. Actor James Arness, musician Miles Davis. Astronaut Sally Ride. And Nikki A. Cox from Supernatural, who passed away last year at the age of just 47. Leukemia. Cancer sucks. Also, still with us on this date, Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac fame, 75. Blaxploitation star Pam Grier is 74. From Miami Vice, Philip Michael Thomas is 74. Hank Williams Jr., 74 as well today. From As the World Turns and Gossip Girl, Margaret Colin is 65. From General Hospital, Jeannie Francis, Laura of Luke and Laura fame, 61 years of age. Bobcat Goldthwait, 61. Musician Lenny Kravitz is 59. Actress Helena Bonham Carter, 57. South Park producer Matt Stone, 52. And singer Lauryn Hill is 48. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 26th day of May as their birthday. If this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you.
And from 76 years ago, May 26, 1946, Fred Allen on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning in on this Friday on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, summertime radio was interesting. You had unique shows, you had special shows, because all of the big shows, in fact, almost every regular show, only ran 39 weeks, 3 quarters of the year. The last quarter of the summer, it was thought that people didn't listen to the radio in the summer. Portable radios were not a big thing until you got into the 50s. Auto radios the same way till you got to the 50s. It wasn't even considered. So, basically, you wrapped up the shows in May and didn't come back till September. So this is close to wrapping up the series for the year of Fred Allen, and that's when Jack Benny always went back to New York in May to do his show from there. May 26, 1946, Fred Allen on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Mr. Allen, Mr. Allen.
It isn't one of the old hickory singers, kiddies.
The makers of Bluebonnet Margarine and Tenderleaf Tea present The Fred Allen Show. With Fred's guests, Mary Livingston's husband, Portland Hoffa, Minerva Pius as Mrs. Nussbaum, Alan Reed as Falstaff Openshaw, Parker Fenley as Titus Moody, the DeMarco sisters, and Al Goodman and his orchestra. And until I start tooting the claghorn, my name is Kenny Delmar. Ladies and gentlemen, Shakespeare said, to be or not to be. Benjamin Franklin said, remember, time is money. But for the last 8 months, all I've said is, here he is again, Fred Allen.
Thank you and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And Kenny, I happen to overhear your opening remarks. Lad, if you are unhappy in your work...
Well, how can I be happy, Fred? Every Sunday, what do? I have one line. Here he is again.
Kenny, the man who invented the telephone only had one line when he started.
Yeah, but Fred, I'm not getting any place in radio. It's the same on my other show.
Oh, you're on another...
The Lucky Strike program.
Oh, the Lucky Strike program. What do you do on that?
You know when the man says LSMFT?
Yeah.
Then the tobacco auctioneer says Yatata, sold American.
Uh-huh.
Then a voice says, you bet.
You bet.
Another voice says, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The voice that says, yes, sir, is mine.
You're beaten down on that show, too, huh? Kenny, why don't you give up that other job and just work on our show?
You mean you'll pay me the extra money?
No, Kenny, but I tell you what I shall do. I'll let you add the line you have on the Lucky Strike program to the line you have on our show. Put them together now and see how they sound.
Here he is again. Yes, sir.
How is that?
Well, that's more like it, Fred. Now I've got something to do.
As long as you're happy, Kenny, that's
Mr. Allen!
Well, Portland, see you later. Well, Portland, pull up an old rejoinder and sit down. What's new?
Mama says President Truman has taken over all the coal mines.
Does your mother need coal?
Yes. Mama's calling up the White House tomorrow and ordering 2 tons.
Oh, that's fine. Do away with the middleman. Go right to the top. Right? Well, if she needs any wood, the president could sit down at the piano and give her a couple of chords, I imagine. Not good. Huh? Help it. The man crept in here and did something to the script tonight. I won't mention any names.
Mama says the world today is a bowling alley.
The world is a bowling alley?
Every time you turn around, there's a strike.
Well, I'm glad that anything you don't understand, applaud. It's perfectly all right. That's what they do in Hollywood. People come in, just applaud and get warm and go home. I'm glad the trains are running again, Portland.
Yes, if the railroad strike lasted one more week,
yeah,
the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe would have been off the hit parade.
Oh, that would have been terrible. Well, I think I'll run along, Portland. I have to get my magnifying glass and worm a crab apple.
Mama says Friday is your birthday.
That's right.
How old are you?
Nobody knows, Portland. I was born before the Decca Company started, so there weren't any records in those days.
Mama says
Now, don't you laugh. Don't you stop laughing. You're going to establish a precedent in here. I want to know about it. Come to me.
Mama says last year when the candles on your birthday cake melted down,
yeah,
there was enough grease to wax the floor at Roseland.
Oh, I'm not that old, Portland.
Mama says if you were a piece of furniture, you'd be an antique.
Yeah. If I was an antique in radio, I'd be Duncan's other fife. Well, that's life, I guess, Portland.
Mama says life is like the Australian fig bird.
The Australian fig bird?
It lives on the seeds in figs.
But there aren't any figs in Australia.
The Australian fig bird dies at birth.
And the Australian fig bird has nothing on our jokes, let me tell you. I think we'd better get along to Allen's Alley, Portland.
What is your question tonight?
Well, recently, a Mr. Ralph Slater, a specialist in mental suggestion, made a phonograph record that he guarantees will put any insomniac to sleep. And so our question is, do you have any trouble sleeping? And if you do, what are you doing about it?
Shall we go?
As the dollar dinner said when the glutton sat down, I'll be gone in a minute. It's so good to get back to Allen's Alley, Portland. It's as quiet as an eel coiling in a bucket of whipped cream. Say, I wonder if the senator is in. Let's knock.
Somebody now.
Yes,
Claghorn's the name, Senator Claghorn.
Well, now, look, I know.
Something tells me you don't remember me, son.
Look, I remember you.
I'm from the South, the Pone and Possum Paradise.
Now, look, Senator.
The only plant life I have around my house is a Virginia creeper.
Now, wait a minute.
Every time I get chicken pox, they're Southern fries.
Senator.
Remember me now, son?
No.
Don't say no in my presence.
Why not?
N.O., that's North abbreviated.
Wait a minute, Senator. What about this sleeping problem?
When I first went to the Senate, I had plenty of trouble sleeping. After the roll was called, I'd put on my sailsucker nightshirt and my linsey woolsey beret.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd face the south, lean back, close my eyes.
And go to sleep, huh?
Until some Yankee pigeon plucker would get up, start flapping his lips, and break up my Morpheus filibuster. Filibuster, that is.
Heard you the first time, Senator. Are you still losing sleep, Senator?
No, I've solved my problem, son.
How?
When I'm ready to sleep in the Senate, I sit back and croon myself my southern lullaby.
What is your southern lullaby?
Rock-a-bye, small fry on the cotton tree top. When the southern wind blows, your cradle will rock. When the wind's from the north, I say, baby, you'll bawl. For down will come cradle, tree, and you all.
Well, very good, Senator. So long, Senator. So long, Senator. Well, the Senator stopped just in time. I was dozing off myself. Say, I wonder how Titus Moody is doing.
Howdy, Bob.
You're starting to sound like Dennis Day, Titus. Tell me, Mr. Moody, do you have any trouble sleeping?
I only half sleep.
Half sleep?
I got short eyelids.
With short eyelids, you can't close your eyes, huh?
Only when I frown.
Oh, I see. Well, are you the only one awake on the farm?
No, daylight saving time has got everything in a swivet.
The animals are bewildered?
Yeah, my cow had insomnia.
Your cow didn't sleep at all?
The bags under her eyes were so big, I didn't know which end to milk.
You were confused, eh?
Yeah. First time I milked the wrong end and got 2 buckets full of homogenized tears.
Well, have you cured the cow's insomnia?
I got a book on hypnotizing.
Good.
I stood in front of the cow.
Yeah?
I stared right into her eyes.
Uh-huh.
I started waving with my hands.
Uh-huh.
I said, Alakazam, Alakazam, you ain't a cow, you're a hen.
You're a hen. Well, was your hypnotism a success?
Yeah, today that cow thinks she's a hen.
Well, how do you know?
Well, she's sitting on a nest.
You mean?
She's laying eggnogs. So long, buddy.
Let's try this next door here.
No?
Oh, Mrs. Nussbaum.
You are expecting maybe Hoagie Carbuncle.
Tell me, Mrs. N, do you have trouble sleeping?
Who could sleep? Every night with his dreaming, my husband Pierre is waking me up.
He dreams, huh?
Always his different things.
Dreams these different things? How do you mean?
One night, Pierre is dreaming he is the lone stranger.
Yeah?
All night long, he is yelling, Hi-ho, Silver.
Hi-ho, Silver, huh?
Upstairs is living a Mr. Silver.
Yeah?
All night, he is yelling back, Hi-ho, Nussbaum.
I see.
One night, Pierre is dreaming he is an automobile, a roadster.
A roadster?
In his pajamas, Pierre is sleeping with the top down.
Oh. Fine.
Once he is dreaming he is an Alka-Seltzer.
An Alka-Seltzer?
All night, Pierre is fizzing.
Well, no wonder. No wonder you can't sleep.
Last night, he should drop dead.
What happened?
He is dreaming he is a tea kettle.
A tea kettle, huh?
All night long, Pierre is whistling.
Whistling?
In the morning, when he is waking,
Yeah?
in bed with Pierre is 20 dogs.
Well, that brings us to the lavender shanty at the end of the alley. Let's try here.
You knocked 3 times. Do you think that's nice? In my last picture, the postman rang twice.
Falstaff, you have new poems tonight?
Indubitably. Hast heard, said the little bear to the big giraffe, let's eat a hyena just for a laugh?
No.
Or when I called her baby, her face lit up because she had a lantern jaw?
No.
How about this? Mother's home putting spikes in her shoes. She's playing first base for Vera Cruz.
Now, wait a minute, Paul. You exponent of the hackneyed, tonight we are discussing the problem of sleep.
My poem awaits your bidding.
And what is your shut-eye sonata called?
My recipe for slumber.
How does it go?
If you cannot sleep at night and you don't know what to do, my recipe for slumber is just the thing for you. Don't waste time taking powders. Don't bother counting sheep. Don't dawdle in a hot bath hoping you will sleep. Don't give up drinking coffee. Don't send for any gland man. You can eat and drink all night, and still you'll meet the Sandman. My recipe for slumber is older than the Sphinx. Just cut 20 tiddlies into halves, and you'll get 40 winks.
Well, thank you.
May 26, 1946, The Fred Allen Show here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 76 years ago today, following these important messages from your favorite radio station. Just going to take a minute here to tell you about the big savings going on now, the clearance sale at mypillow.com. And you know, I've talked about how in my office I have a pair of my slippers, and they're really comfortable, and they're on clearance right now. The mypillow.com slippers, $25 a pair, limit 10. And I would buy 3 or 4 more pairs. Unfortunately, they're out of my size. They also have sheets, pillowcases, clothing items, all on special right now. Go to mypillow.com, click on the clearance tab at the top of the page, use my promo code Wyatt, or call 1-800-928-4715. Limited sizes remaining in the MyPillow slippers, limited colors on other items. mypillow.com, clearance tab, promo code Wyatt, 1-800-928-4715. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. You're listening to an episode of The Fred Allen Show, as it was originally broadcast on Friday, May 26, 1946, in the newspapers of that Friday. 76 years ago, these were some of the headlines. A nationwide railroad strike, greatest tie-up of its kind in world history, brought an almost 100% shutdown tonight of service on the country's 227,335 miles of vital trackage. Hours of negotiation at the White House failed to bring a settlement. More will be held tomorrow. President Truman, disappointed at the rejection of his official proposals, retired without any statement. A mail embargo was imminent following a freight embargo already imposed. Cities faced food shortages before long, faltering coal production near to full stop. Industrial shutdowns were threatened. Warren C. Kendall, head of the Car Service Division of the American Association of American Railroads, said the strike up to now appears to be pretty close to a 100% tie-up. This was almost 5.5 hours after the strike broke upon the East and 2.5 hours after it spread to the Pacific coast. A Senate stirred by rail and coal strikes early today smashed a talk fest by pro-union members and voted to outlaw John L. Lewis's number one demand. By a vote of 48-30, it approved a proposal by Senator Byrd, the Democrat of Virginia, prohibiting employer contributions to welfare funds unless they are administered equally by management and unions. Lewis is demanding a fund financed by the coal operators, but handled solely by his United Mine Workers Union. After long hours of debate in which Senator Pepper, the Democrat of Florida, held the floor with a speech inveighing against restrictive labor legislation now, Senator Taylor, the Democrat of Idaho, took the floor what looked like another time-consuming speech. But when Mr. Taylor researched that some of the senators had been acting like a bunch of jackasses, Senator Hickenlooper, Republican of Iowa, pounced on him. Mr. Hickenlooper announced that he was objecting to the language, whereupon Senator Huey, the Democrat of North Carolina, presiding, ordered Mr. Taylor to take his seat. Rail passenger traffic into and out of major cities went completely into confusion yesterday at the 5 o'clock strike deadline. Although last-minute efforts to prevent renewal of the strike still were going on, railroad men in the Pittsburgh district put it into effect on schedule. Thousands of commuter passengers, the first affected, as the local trains of the Pennsylvania Railroad, the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie, and the Baltimore and Ohio ceased to run at the deadline. Principal points of confusion were at the bus stations and stops suddenly jammed with passengers. Despite the fact it was a rail strike, most depots were calm, due in part to newspaper and radio warnings that commuters should find other means of transportation to go home before the deadline. Federal aid to meet what's believed the worst food crisis in Pittsburgh's history sought at an emergency meeting of the Pittsburgh Food Advisory Committee, a war-created agency which has been inactive since last October. And government will order a brownout in eastern and midwestern coal-burning areas early next week if the railroad strike continues or soft coal mining is halted again. This announced by the Civil Production Administration. And a railroad strike will just about paralyze the meat industry, according to Armour and Company President George A. Eastwood, saying fresh meat, being a highly perishable product, must be kept constantly under refrigeration and handled expeditiously. If the strike should be prolonged, there will be widespread suffering throughout the country when current meat stocks are depleted. Though some of the day's top news stories, as reported in the newspapers of Friday, May 26, 1946, on your radio, Fred Allen. The conclusion next on this Friday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Science fiction on Saturday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, going back 73 years to May 27, 1950, to the future. A couple from the future escapes back to 1950 to avoid the horrors of war in their time. The searchers are sent to bring them back. That's on Saturday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Let's wrap up this Friday edition. Fred Allen, as it was originally broadcast, May 26, 1946, 76 years ago today.
That was just a short order of Who Do You Love, I Hope, played by Maestro Al Goodman and his 40 men who...
This is Studio 6A,
Say, wait a minute,
folks.
wait a minute.
This glass booth is the control room.
Say, just a minute.
That little man with the mildew on him is a vice president.
Say, wait a minute. What is this?
This is a Radio City 60-cent tour. Okay, folks, let's get going. Hey, wait a minute. I got a stowaway here.
A stowaway in a tour?
Only 15 people paid. Now I got 16.
Who would be low enough to sneak into a tour to save 60 cents?
There's the guy. Hey, you.
Who, me? Jack Benny.
Come on,
Jack.
I'm going to get 60 cents out of you.
Take your hand off my spine. Put me down.
Yes, guide. Put Mr. Benny down. I'll give you the 60 cents.
Wait a minute, Fred, wait a minute. Put that money away.
But, Jack.
I've only seen half the tour.
Well, Jack.
Give him 30 cents.
Here you are, guide.
Thanks. Follow me, folks. Now, on your right is a water cooler.
Well, Fred, it was nice of you to pay that 30 cents.
Oh, it was nothing.
Nothing, he says. 30 cents.
Jack, how can you be so cheap?
All right, go ahead. Be like the other radio comedians. Tell some cheap jokes. Say I'm tighter than the skin on Sidney Greenstreet's hip. I squeeze a nickel so hard the E pluribus laps over the unum. Tell him.
Well, Jack, I didn't...
Oh, start insulting me after I made a special trip up here just to say goodbye before I leave for Hollywood.
Well, Jack,
All of a sudden, I'm cheap. I won't even eat in the sun. My shadow might ask me for a bite.
Your shadow has teeth? Jack, now look. Jack, don't get excited. Look, if you're cheap, you're cheap.
That's the way I look at it. Some people save asparagus ends. It's a hobby. My hobby is not spending.
Well, Jack, if there ever was a time that you and I should not argue, this is the time.
What do you mean this is the time?
Well, haven't you heard? A lot of the radio programs that have been on for many years have been canceled. They'll not be back on the air next fall.
Well, that's radio, Fred. It's dog eat dog. I always say only the fit survive.
Oh, how true. By the way, you finished tonight, didn't you?
Yes, sirree. Tonight was my last show of the season.
Did your sponsor mention anything about your program coming back in October?
Well, no, Fred, but we have a mutual understanding. You see, we always sort of take it for granted.
Oh.
The season ends, the sponsor shakes hands with me, and then we... Yipe!
Jack, what's wrong?
Tonight he didn't shake hands.
Well, that's what happened to the street singer. At the end of the year, his sponsor used to wink. One year he didn't wink. The street singer was back in the street.
But, Fred, why should my sponsor want to get rid of me? Well, I'm funnier than I was when I started, and I'm getting less money.
Really?
Some weeks when he's short, I take tobacco. I hate to get these big laughs on your program.
Let's face it, Jack. Radio needs new blood. Who knows? We may be through.
I've been on radio 14 years. They can't throw me aside like an old shoe.
But, Jack...
14 years. And now, like an old shoe.
But, Jack, you with that and yipe. 14 years is a long time.
Fred, what has Ma Perkins got that I haven't got? Only longer commercials. That's it.
Well, Jack, you know how it is in radio. Today you're a star. Tomorrow Ralph Edwards is hitting you in the face with a pie.
Like an old shoe.
Well, cheer up, Jack. At least we have our memories. We've known each other for 30 years.
Yep. The first time I met you, Fred, I was just a kid in school. A diller, a dollar, a 10 o'clock scholar.
You were the only 10 o'clock scholar I ever saw with 5 o'clock shadow.
How I could use some of that fuzz today. I could use a good joke today, too.
The next time we met, we were in vaudeville, remember? You were doing a musical act.
Playing the violin. What a finish I had. When I played Glowworm, my violin lit up.
With those neon strings, it was beautiful.
Fred, remember my encore?
Encore?
Remember I'd put the violin bow in my teeth, bend the crab, and play Listen to the Mockingbird?
And as you bent the crab, 2 mockingbirds flew out of the back of your pants.
I stopped every show.
Except this one. Remember the closing...
This one stopped 5 minutes before I got on it.
Stopped with Cash Daly. Remember that week in Needles, Arizona, the closing act, Cohen's Camels?
Cohen's... No,
the closing act. Jack, how could you forget Cohen's Camel?
Cohen, I remember. My sponsor told me to forget that other word.
Those were the happy days. The next time I saw you, you were just going into radio.
I remember the morning Marconi called me up.
Marconi?
Marconi and Singing Sam had a little radio station in a doorway down on the east side. The antenna was a Western Union boy holding a wire.
Well, I guess
these kind of jokes don't fit.
No, they don't.
The antenna. When did I ever say antenna on my own program? Go ahead, Fred.
Well, it's all over, Jack. We've come to the end of the rainbow.
Like an old shoe.
There it is again.
And on 10 minutes already, I've only had it's an old shoe. Oh, I forgot antenna.
Yeah. You ought to get a boot out of that old shoe by now.
No, I'm sorry I brought it back in again. It seems like only yesterday I ran into the May Company and said, Mary, stop demonstrating that Brillo. That's another word I don't know.
It goes on top of an antenna. A Brillo fits on an antenna. Cheer up, Jack. When you're retired, you can tune in on my program.
Your program? You mean you're not getting thrown out of radio, too?
Well, why should I?
Listen, if my program is old stuff, you with that broken-down Allen's Alley.
No, well, wait, I mean my new show.
New show?
People don't want entertainment today. A radio show has to give away things. Nylons, iceboxes, automobiles.
You mean to stay on the air, you have to give things away? Free?
Yes.
I'll die first.
Well, not me. I'm auditioning my new program tonight.
And you're giving things away?
Tons of stuff.
To strangers?
What's the difference who gets it?
Well, Fred, as long as I'm here in the studio...
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Jack. Professional people cannot participate. It's a rule.
But don't you ever find people on these programs changing their names to get something for nothing?
Well, occasionally we do catch a phony, but we're on the air. What can we do?
Nothing. You have to give them the merchandise?
That's right.
Mr. Allen, we're ready for your audition.
I'll run along, Fred. So long.
So long, Jack.
Giving away things for nothing.
Well, all right, Mr. Goodman, let's try out my new show.
How would you like to be king for a day? And here he is, the man who will change one of you nobodies into king for a day, the old kingmaker himself, Red Allen.
Thank you. Thank you. And good evening. Did all you folks in the audience like those $1,000 bills you found on your seats when you came in? Good. And if you want more, there'll be a big bag of money at the door. On your way out, help yourselves. But the stage is loaded with hundreds of presents for the first man to answer our jumbo jackpot question. He will be king for a day. And here is our first eager contestant. Good evening, sir. What is your name?
Abner Flogg.
Mr. Flogg, how old are you?
I'm 98.
98 years old.
And don't pin no orchid onto me.
No orchid, eh?
That's how I lost my wife.
On a quiz program?
Yeah. My wife was 102. A fella pinned an orchid onto her.
I see.
The weight of the orchid bent my wife over and snapped her spine.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, my wife won first prize, but she never knew it.
Well, all right, Mr. Flogg. Now for our question. You may be king for a day.
I don't think I'll last through the day.
All right, we'll hurry. Tell me, who was the 6th president of the United States?
The 6th?
There were 3 names.
Mary Margaret McBride?
Oh, I'm awfully sorry, Mr. Flogg. But for making such a swell try, here is a gift certificate presented at LaGuardia Airfield, and you will get a brand new B-29 and a polka dot form-fitting parachute. Happy landings, Mr. Flogg. And here is our next potential king for a day. Your name, sir?
Myron Proudfoot.
Myron Proudfoot? You look like a chap I know.
I'm not interested in your friend. Start giving things away, brother.
What is your occupation, Mr. Proudfoot?
I'm a chaplain in a bakery.
What does a chaplain do in a bakery?
I put wings on angel cakes.
How long have you been in the cake business, Mr. Proudfoot?
Long enough to know a crumb when I see one. And I see one.
Now, don't get sarcastic, Mr. Proudleg.
The name is Proudfoot, and make with the question.
All right. Who was the 6th president of the United States?
John Quincy Adams.
John Quincy Adams is correct, and Mr. Myron Proudfoot is king for a day. Folks, here he is, King Proudfoot. Well, Your Majesty, how do you feel?
Never mind how I feel. What do I get?
Well, first, for His Majesty from Schnook Sport Nook, a genuine no-splash, beaver-board canoe paddle.
Here. A canoe paddle? Oh, boy!
And with the compliments of Tiffany's, this chromium pitchfork.
King for a day. A 4-pronger, and it's all mine.
And from Hemingway's hardware store, 200 pounds of self-hardening putty for King for a day.
Just what I needed. Just what I needed.
This is just the beginning, King. King, you are over 35.
By 2 years.
Fine. That jumbo carton, Uncle Jim, for His Majesty. He is over...
Effie, that's yipe backward.
And here, the piston rod from a genuine Baldwin locomotive for His Majesty the King. A small locomotive. And here, from Melody Lane Music Shop, this case of 2,000 soybean mandolin picks. These are the mandolins.
I just keep pinching myself to believe it.
Immediately after this program, Your Majesty will be guest of honor at a banquet at Hamburger Heaven. Tomorrow morning, through the courtesy of the Sanitation Department, you will be guest conductor on the 11.5 garbage run through the Bronx. At night, in your ermine robe, you will be whisked by bicycle to Orange, New Jersey, where you will be the judge in a chicken cleaning contest.
I'm king for a day.
And that's not all.
There's more?
Yes, we are going to start right now to make you look like a king. Sam of Sam's Super Shoe Shine Stand is here to brush your shoes. All right, Sam.
Sam, watch out for the button.
Next, the president of the Busy Bee Hat Cleaners is here to block your hat. Take the king's hat, Mr. Bumble.
And change the newspaper in the hat band.
Your suit is a little baggy, King. Boys, take His Majesty's coat off. Wait. On our stage, we have a Hoffman pressing machine.
Now, wait a minute.
An expert operating the Hoffman pressing machine will press your trousers.
Now, wait!
Take as much as you can for, boys. Keep your shirt on, King.
You bet I'll keep my shirt on.
We're a little late, folks. Tune in again.
Come on,
next
Alan,
week.
give me my pants.
Quiet, King.
Alan, this is a place. Where are my pants?
Benny, for 15 years I've been waiting to catch you like
Alan,
this.
you haven't seen the end of me.
It won't be long now.
I want my pants.
Now, if you don't know what day today is...
Today is the day to get out the tall glasses. The iced tea season is here. Time to enjoy iced tender leaf tea, one of summer's main attractions. Yes, iced tea is raised to its ultimate best by the use of this richer blend. In fact, the iced tea season has played a big part in making tender leaf tea so famous for flavor. Flavor means more. It's more important through the summer months. So everybody sets out to get all the flavor going, and that leads straight to tender leaf tea for finer flavor and more of it. In spite of melting ice, the richer goodness of tender leaf tea persists. The last swallow of the glass is still delicious. Still flavorful tender leaf tea.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
Word is they did take Jack Benny's pants down. No verification of the fact whether the underwear that Jack was wearing had written on it LSMFT. No verification of that at all. May 26, 1946, King for a Day here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Thank this station. Support their advertisers. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Find lists of places where we have podcasts available for download. You can also find our social media links. You can contact me, and you can also buy me a coffee, as Richard has several times. We appreciate you, Richard. That helps us acquire additional classic radio collections and helps us maintain our distribution channels. classicradio.stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.